Over the last couple of years, we've been testing a bunch of Hasselblad lenses, and in our view, the XCD lenses are some of the best lenses that we've tested from Hasselblad. More recently, Canon has been producing some really good lenses for its RF mount as well, and in this video we decided to compare the X1D Mark II or X1D II with the 80mm f1.9, which is one of my favorite portrait lenses ever, versus the new Canon EOS R5 with this huge behemoth of a lens, the 85mm f1.2. So we're in Leeds, the weather's not bad today. Let's find out how both of these lenses compare to one another. Okay, so let's quickly run through some of the specifications between both of these systems. Now, we're going to be focusing more on the lenses as opposed to the cameras, but what I will say about the cameras is that the resolution between both of these systems is close enough now. This is a 50 megapixel camera, whereas the Canon is 45. So because of the similarities in resolution, I think it's fair enough for us to be able to compare both of the lenses. First impressions on the Canon, this lens is just huge. I mean, it's a behemoth of a lens. It's awkward in a backpack. It's just ridiculous in terms of its size. It's much larger than the Hasselblad. The Hasselblad has a more sleeker design and sleeker look, and the Hasselblad is lighter than the Canon system as well. In terms of price points, the Hasselblad is obviously more expensive. This is about $4,000 more expensive than the Canon, so you could potentially buy two R5s and the RF 85mm f1.2 for the price of this one lens and one camera body. But we're looking at the performance, not the price in this video. So we're going to be taking some pictures of our model today. Her name's Karen. So let's go around, let's take some pictures and see how both of these systems compare against one another. Okay, so first impressions between both systems. The Canon is just a heck of a lot faster. It's a lot snappier. It's much easier to shoot with. The eye detect focus in the Canon is really good, and it just helps you compose far more effectively because you're not having to constantly move focus points around just to be able to get the shot. With the Hasselblad, I got tired of moving the focus points around, so I just completely stopped and just started doing focus and recompose, because it's just a lot quicker and a lot easier to shoot that way than it is to have the focus point constantly on the subject's eye. The other thing is, every time you take a picture, it's just a lot slower. I mean, I'm aware of that. I've got a good amount of experience with these Hasselblad cameras anyway, but just pointing out the key differences between both cameras when you're shooting with them. The thing that I really like between both cameras is the way that the images look on the back of the screen. I mean, we're not looking at them on, big screens at the moment, but on the back of the screen, both cameras look really good. Like, the images from the Canon look vibrant, the colors look really nice. I'd say that the Hasselblad is potentially doing a better job in terms of colors because they look more accurate based on what we're seeing right now. However, we are looking at the back of the screens on these cameras, so it's probably more effective to compare them on a larger screen when we jump into Lightroom. Okay, so here we have some images opened up in Lightroom now, and first thing I want to mention is that all of these files are PSD files, and the reason for that is because the Hasselblad files were processed in Focus and the Canon files were processed in Capture One, and then they've been brought into Lightroom so we can do a side-by-side comparison. So this first image, this is from the Hasselblad. If I put it side by side with the Canon, you'll notice one thing immediately, and that is Canon Colors look fantastic. The EOS R5 is the first ever full-frame camera that I've shot with that produces incredible color. It's actually outperforming the Hasselblad. And yes, as I mentioned, this was processed in Focus, exported as a PSD, and the Canon, same thing. First thing, look at the red tones. Canon's doing a much better job of keeping them vibrant and beautiful. The green tones are there, the purple tones look amazing. And if you look at Karen's coat, Hasselblad has kind of shifted it into like a magenta tone, and even the black tones, there's this magenta shift to it, which is making it just a little bit purple, whereas the Canon, also there's a little tiny amount of chromatic aberration there, but the Canon is doing a much better job. This is more accurate. This is genuinely more accurate. The Canon is doing a better job, and it just looks amazing. Like if you look at the red tones, it's got a slight magenta shift to it, whereas the Canon it's actually red. It's amazing. For the second comparison, we can see both images side by side once again, and Canon again doing a brilliant job on color. Look at the bag, her skirt, even the coat. Once again, magenta shift there, and even the black colors. Canon is doing an incredible job. This bag, Canon has accurately represented it, and Hasselblad hasn't. This is the first ever time, as I mentioned, first time where a full frame camera is outperforming a Hasselblad when it comes to color. This is not something that I've seen before, and focus, you know, it's okay. I think that the Hasselblad may have missed focus just slightly, like it might be a little bit front focused, but Canon with its incredible autofocus system just nails it every single time. It was just a complete joy to shoot with. Now for this third comparison, I want to look at skin tones. Now skin tones is something that Hasselblad in general does a brilliant job, but look at this side by side. Canon has represented Karen's skin color far more effectively than the Hasselblad has. The Hasselblad is leaning a little bit into the yellow tones, and darker skin tones for a lot of cameras tend to be a little bit tricky anyway, but look at the way the Hasselblad has rendered those skin tones. It's just done a brilliant job. It's just incredible what Canon has managed with its colors. I don't know how they've done it, but they've done a brilliant job. As I mentioned, darker skin color tends to be a little bit trickier for a lot of camera manufacturers, but Canon is doing a brilliant job here. Same again here. When you look at the skin color between both of these images, the Canon is doing a better job. The Hasselblad again leaning a little bit into the yellow tones, and I'm actually genuinely surprised. I'm genuinely surprised at the fact that the Canon is doing such a good job when it comes to skin color. And finally, we have these two images over here, and once again, Canon seems to be doing a better job when it comes to color. The wood tones, they look nicer. The greens in the plant or tree or bush behind Karen looks a lot more vibrant. The reds look more vibrant. Her bag looks more vibrant as well. Everything just looks really fantastic. There might be a slight magenta shift, I think, in this image on the Canon. I can't really tell. But then if you look at the coat, you can see that the Hasselblad has made it look a little bit more magenta, whereas the Canon is making it look more accurate. So, you know, I have to say, Canon has done a brilliant job when it comes to its color profiles for the EOS R5. This is the first time, as I mentioned earlier, this is the first time that a full frame camera is outperforming a medium format camera system such as the Hasselblad when it comes to color, which I think is simply amazing. We also took a number of shots in a more controlled studio type environment, and a couple of things came to light. The first thing is the Canon was much better at finding focus when we were just using a modeling light. The Hasselblad, however, really struggled to find focus to a point where we just completely stopped and started using manual focus only. Also, just a quick plug for the backdrops that we were using in the studio type shoots. It's from a company called D Backdrops. Prices are great, quality is awesome, and I'll leave a link below in the description. And here we have the two studio shots side by side with one another, and I honestly can't really decide which one I prefer. What I will say, however, is that the Canon is doing a better job in terms of slight accuracy, like the wood color, the suit jacket, the skin tones. Canon's doing a better job. The Hasselblad has a slight yellow shift to everything, but I do like the look of the Hasselblad image. Once again, these were processed in Capture One and Focus, and then brought back into Lightroom, so you can see these are PSD files. They're not RAW files, because they were processed in their respective softwares, just to make sure that each one has the is working towards their own advantages. So yeah, in terms of colors, I have to say Canon is doing an incredible job. Hasselblad is still one of the best. It's just that the Canon EOS R5 is doing a slightly better job. It's surprising. It's just doing such an incredible job. And finally, we have the controlled sharpness test between both cameras and lenses. And these two images were shot wide open. And if we zoom in 1:1, you'll notice that both lenses do an incredible job wide open. However, the Canon does look a hair sharper in comparison to the Hasselblad, which is incredible. And this is at f1.2, by the way, so it's not really an equivalent aperture, so you can stop down the lens slightly in order to get an equivalent aperture between these two. But the yeah, Canon's definitely slightly sharper in the center. In the corners, however, the Hasselblad is a little bit crisper. Like you can see, the text on the Hasselblad is just a little bit sharper. So center sharpness, Canon does win just by a slight amount, and corner sharpness, the Hasselblad wins by a very noticeable amount, which is pretty incredible. Also, look at the chromatic aberrations. Like, the Canon has far fewer aberrations in comparison to the Hasselblad. This is just amazing to think that a full-frame lens, which doesn't cost anywhere near as much as this lens does, and it has a wider aperture and produces shallower depth of field, can have such incredible optical performance. If you stop down the Canon to f1.4, which is kind of close to the equivalent aperture of the Hasselblad, that's when we start to see that the Canon is definitely sharper in the center. However, in the corners, the Hasselblad retains detail better than the Canon does. And finally, when you stop down both lenses to f5.6, which is not an equivalent aperture, meaning that the advantage is on the side of the Hasselblad, the Canon is still sharper, which is just amazing. I find this to be such a brilliant lens. Center sharpness, the Canon is sharper, and even in the corners, the Canon becomes a sharper lens. Less chromatic aberrations, wide open, and even at f5.6, and even in the corners, the Canon is sharper. So center sharpness, the Canon is better throughout the aperture range, it seems. However, when you stop down, the Canon not only becomes sharper in the center, but is also sharper in the corners. So that's how the Canon and the Hasselblad compare against one another, and I have to say, I am utterly impressed with how well the Canon EOS R5 and the 85mm f1.2 performs. I mean, the autofocus, the handling, the image quality, the colors. I mean, the colors. Wow. Those colors are some of the best colors I have ever seen. I mean, in my mind, if I ever want the best colors, like if I think of the best camera for colors, I think of Hasselblad. So the fact that the Canon is not only performing on the same level, but it's outperforming the Hasselblad, that says a lot. That speaks volumes to me. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Hasselblad is still one of the best camera systems on the market. Easy when it comes to image quality and colors. Still up there. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the 80mm, still my favorite portrait lens, without a doubt. I absolutely adore that lens because of the field of view. As good as the 85mm is, I love that field of view that the 80mm has on the X1D. But if we're talking just sheer image quality, wow, the Canon is just producing the goods. It is incredible. The 85mm, the image quality, wide open, sharper than a medium format lens. Sharper than a brilliant medium format lens. That says a lot. I mean, I am completely blown away. And the thing is, every single person that we were working with, and throughout the time that we had the Canon EOS R5, Alex and Annette and all the other people that we work with, every single person that picked up the EOS R5 was immediately blown away by how good it was. And we're talking like other professional photographers who obviously have experience with cameras and know how cameras work and so on and so forth. But every single person who picked up the EOS R5 was completely blown away by it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's the best camera system on the market, but I have tested and, you know, really played about with pretty much every camera system on the market. And nothing has stood out to me as much as the Canon EOS R5. And it's the colors, the image quality, and the autofocus. Colors from that camera, ridiculously good. It's some of the best I have ever seen, if not the best, not including customized CC profiles. So yeah, definitely impressed. Anyway, just want to say thank you so much for watching our video. If you like this video, hit the like button, please subscribe, share this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Thank you.